This is the In the Rabbit Hole podcast episode archive project. What you're about to listen to is a past episode from the In the Rabbit Hole Urban Survival podcast. You can learn more by visiting intherabbithole.com. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel now.
Oh, it's on? And now two guys who survived being attacked by a Swedish bachelorette party, Aaron and Jonathan.
Howdy, and welcome to episode 81 of In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. In this episode, we share a couple of conspiracy theories with you, and race, religion, and survival. We're your hosts, Aaron
and Jonathan.
And you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. Whether you're already a crack shot or have never taken a bit of instruction in your life, we could all become better marksmen. Join the volunteers at Project Appleseed for a day or even a weekend of rifle instruction that is second to none. Find out where marksmanship meets history by connecting with the good folks at appleseedinfo.org or click on the 3 Strikes of the Match banner under the We Support heading in the right-hand column of In the Rabbit Hole. Remember, your rifle isn't going to shoot itself. So impress your friends, impress your neighbors the next time you're at the range. And don't miss out on the chance to shoot for free and earn your rifleman's patch today. We actually have Jonathan in the studio today. It's been like forever since you've been here. I had to reset up your microphone and clear off your spot and everything.
I know, it's so beautiful. I mean, minus the smell of chickens, but it's beautiful. Beautiful. My chair still feels comfy.
Yeah,
it's all good.
I had all kinds of paperwork spread out on your section of the desk and everything.
I wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
You made me feel so much at home.
See, I like to clean up and welcome you back, even if it is just for one episode.
Exactly, and I had to bring my bow for you to see and all that kind of stuff too.
And that actually was very impressive, and it was unfortunate since we were actually getting rain.
I know, we're getting rain, so and I think I said it in the archery show, but you can't dry fire a bow or it does some real damage. So we weren't able to shoot it or draw it or anything.
We just kind of picked it up and fondled it. And
it's fun to fondle, though.
It is fun to fondle.
It's kind of like a new gun. You want to touch it and stroke it a little bit.
All right, now you're starting to worry me.
All right, fine.
And actually, I think that sets the tone for the entire show. This is going to be kind of back in the old days where we would get together and be a little wackier than probably we have been lately, which is going to explain the format of the show today, which is going to be a little more like the earlier days, because we've got kind of a mixed bag of topics today, and I think we're even going to start with some conspiracy theories, which we don't ever do. Yeah,
I think this is going to be interesting because this may be the very first time the listeners really get a real feel for what a Tahoe discussion was like. I think we've mentioned these before. We would be riding back and forth from the shooting range in the Tahoe, and I think you're going to get a real feel for what those kinds of conversations are like. And better or worse. I mean, that's what you're going to get today.
Okay, now you brought this up last night over drinks about a news report that you read. So let's get into that.
All right. So, and many of you have probably read this because it's been on every single conservative or survival blog. I mean, it's on a lot of places right now. But it's this whole news report that first one was Department of Homeland Security bought 750 million rounds of ammunition. And then 2 days later, they put another order in for another 750 million rounds of ammunition. For those of you who are slow at math, that's 1.5 billion rounds of ammunition. And I think for some reason, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I think it was 1.5 billion rounds of 40. I mean, they didn't even mix it up a little bit. And then on top of all that, the Social Security Administration, you know, the guys who give out those little paper cards that you're not allowed to laminate, 174,000 rounds of ammunition is what they ordered. And then this one is the one that gets me. The one that takes the cake, and I think the one that kind of made Aaron scratch his head a little bit and go, huh? N.O.A.H. You know, the guys who run the National Weather Service? They bought 140,000 rounds of not just, I think for them it was 40 ammo, and yeah, Social Security Administration was 357 SIG. NO.A.H was 40 cal, and Department of Homeland Security was 40 cal. That's a lot of ammunition. And all handgun ammunition. I mean, I don't know, Aaron. If I were buying ammunition, I wouldn't buy all handgun ammunition, especially $1.5 billion rounds.
Yeah, we were having that discussion.
Yeah.
What would you do with $1.5 billion rounds?
I think I'd buy 500 million rounds of 22.
Yes, we decided. Now you did taper that back because you said 22 mag at one point.
Yeah, that's true. I said 400 million rounds of 22 long rifle and 100 million rounds of 22 mag, because I do like my 22 mag. And one of my suppressors works on a 22 mag, so...
Now, I do not have a 22 mag, and admittedly, I don't really have a desire for 22 mag. I think they're interesting.
I think you should get 300 blackout.
You know, I think that's neat, but after talking to that gunsmith that worked on my FAL, or FAL, I know some people get touchy about which way you say that, but he was unimpressed with it. So I'm gonna. But then again,
1 million rounds, man. Just buy 1 million.
I know, just for laughs, because as we were talking about last night, because we were talking about investors and dealing with investors, not for the rabbit hole, but in your day job,
yes,
you have to deal with some billionaires, and it was joking about $250,000 to a lot of these guys is like finding loose change in the couch.
They're not risking any money when they throw $250,000 at something. So really, you're not losing anything by buying 1 million.
Yeah, 1 million. When you're buying 1.5 billion rounds, 1 million rounds is just kind of like, whatever.
I was thinking 1 million of like all kinds of random variety ammo, like 41 Magnum. I don't own a 41 mag. I probably never will, but why not? I'll buy 250,000 of that.
But why not?
I mean,
to throw at people, not to put in a gun, just to throw at people's heads.
It's a heavy round. I mean, you can just chuck that at somebody. It's going to cause some damage. But back to the conspiracy of it all. 1.5 billion rounds, based on one of the sites I saw, and it gets spooky.
I like spooky.
That's enough to put 5 rounds of ammunition in every American.
Wow. Just to make sure, maybe they are preparing for the zombie apocalypse.
Just to make sure you go down. 5 rounds of ammo.
Now that's beyond, what was it, 2 in the chest and 1 in the head? Or was it 2 in the head and 1 in the chest?
I don't know, whatever it is. It's more than a triple tap. That's a pentatap. I mean, that's serious. I guess that's assuming because they're federal agents and these are not like FBI. These are like, the Social Security Administration, not Secret Service, Social Security Administration. So I guess they're assuming they're going to miss twice.
I suppose.
Hit you 3 times.
I suppose. Here's your check. Take it.
Exactly.
You're going to get your Social Security and you're going to like it.
Yeah. What do you think happens? Like you get a check with a wrong number on it or something and they come to your house armed? Like the Social Security SWAT team. I keep saying Secret Service because those are the guys I expect to buy bullets.
Yes, and we're okay with them buying. And honestly, I'm not really not okay. Well, okay, N.O.A.H. Seriously, but but you dug into it a little deeper.
I did, and they actually came out with a statement that actually it wasn't the National Weather Service that bought all those rounds of ammo. It was. I don't know if this is any better, by the way. So, for those of you who are thinking about this, I want you to understand. I do not believe that the Social Security Administration should have its own police force. I do not believe that N.O.A.H. should have its own police force. We got the FBI for a reason. But apparently N.O.A.H. has a division that's responsible for fisheries and waterfronts and all that kind of stuff. And, by the way, they're also responsible for marine monuments. I don't know what a marine monument is.
I've got it.
Okay.
We redid the Lincoln Memorial out in the Gulf of Mexico, but we put the what is the Chinese thing that we're going to joke about in a little while?
Oh, the face kini.
The face kini. We put a face kini on because we don't want him to get skin cancer.
That's true.
But we used the Miami urban camo, which we'll make fun of again in a little while.
Maybe the Russian sub that was going through the Gulf recently. Maybe that's our new monument.
I didn't hear about that.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. So another conspiracy theory. Although the Admiral of the Navy denies that there was a Russian sub in U.S. waters.
Of course he does.
Although recently, for those of you following all this stuff, you can correct me if I'm wrong on the forums or in comments, but apparently there were 2 Russian incursions of bombers into Alaskan airspace and then also some into California airspace recently. And now the big media report that came out is that there was a Russian nuclear attack sub in the Gulf of Mexico just last week.
I wouldn't put it past Pooty Poot.
I wouldn't put it past him either. I figured they were stopping in for fajitas.
They are really good.
They are.
I love
really
fajitas.
Good. They could have come into Houston's got some excellent fajitas.
And Houston is the actual birthplace of the fajita.
Exactly. That's true.
Actually, it is the official birthplace of the fajita is 1 mile from the studio.
Now, originally, to be fair, now that is all true, but originally, to be fair, I thought they were coming in for crawfish, and then it hit me, it's not crawfish season.
Oh, yeah, you can't eat crawfish out of season.
No. It's
Which
not
I don't know why, actually. I've never bothered to look that up.
These are Russians, though, so maybe they didn't know it was in season
That's
or not.
true.
So they
That's
stopped
true.
in New Orleans first, said, no crawfish, are you kidding? And then went on to Houston for fajitas.
All right. Maybe they were here for some ammo. They were borrowing a cup of 40 caliber for the
This
N.O.A.H.
could be true. This could be true. I also think it's a big sub, so maybe, on their way to Cuba, and I'm using hand gestures for Aaron here, which y'all can't see, but on the way to Cuba, they turned into the Gulf, and that's where they did their U-turn.
Well, the Gulf is kind of like a circle drive.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's no big deal.
It's like America's circle drive for South America.
Exactly. So this is the kind of insanity we talk about regularly.
And to bring it back, I did bring up while we were talking in private about the bullets, which did get a little goofier than we're getting now. We got some of that out of our system before the show. But my point, or my question to you was to bring some sanity to the conversation. While all the news organizations are picking up on this, that's fine, but is this outside of the norm for purchasing for these organizations?
And since you brought it up, I've been thinking about it.
Okay.
I know it was only like 30 minutes ago.
Yes.
But I have been thinking about it. It can't be that normal. Only because 1.5 billion bullets is a whole lot of bullets. So I don't think the production of all the U.S. ammo companies combined could really be churning out that many, plus the military orders, plus civilian orders. I'm going to guess there's something slightly out of the ordinary. Now, I'm going to also agree with you. There may be less conspiracy here than people think. Apparently, really what happened is the Department of Homeland Security put out a request for proposal on this and a notification that they could be ordering up to that many. They could order 2 bullets in reality.
That would be weird, but yeah,
but the request that went out basically tells all the ammo trouble speaking because I'm in the studio, ammo manufacturers, this is how many we could order. Now, I know that doesn't make it any better, really, at least not in my head, but that's what they came out and said. Like, we're not actually taking delivery of 1.5 billion bullets. We're just letting them know we might need them. My first question there is, what do you think you might need them for? I mean, the military has stockpiles of ammunition. National Guard, by the way, who is tasked with protecting this nation as well, also has stockpiles of ammunition in other calibers besides 40, which, again, we'll get back to that in a second. This whole 40 thing bothers me.
Well, but there was 357
But that was only for the Social
too.
Security Administration. Because when you're tracking down old people who are getting checks, you got to have bullets that can pierce a steel door.
That's why I carry 357.
I understand, and I think it's a great round. It's just
not for tracking down old people, just
why not?
on the off chance I have to shoot through a steel door.
But what if there's an old person behind the steel door that you want to get at?
Are they a zombie?
They could be.
Okay,
old zombie.
then I'll. But in general, I don't shoot at old people that aren't shooting at me.
Zombies tend not to shoot back, though. I mean,
or trying to eat me.
Okay.
Anything trying to eat me or shoot at me or any other, lethal weapon.
All right.
I do not count Nerf baseball bats as a lethal weapon.
You're no fun. I mean, sometimes you just have to start an old person hunt. Apparently, I think that's what the Social Security Administration does.
And actually, what we're going to lead into in a little while, which was started on the forum, and the word used on the forum was "old coot."
Yes.
I'm not going to be. Thank you, Navy Jim. By the way, we're for that introduction into today. But yeah, I'm not going to be hunting any old coots. I don't. But apparently, Social Security to start our own conspiracy theory because it's so much fun.
Yes,
they're hunting old people. That's
now,
what they're preparing for.
They claim, and kind of again bring it down a notch. They're saying that they buy this ammunition because they do have a law enforcement arm who is tasked with investigation of Social Security fraud and also tasked with protecting Social Security offices. All that's fine. I still go back to, isn't there an FBI? Like, don't we have a whole Federal Bureau of Investigation that's tasked with all that stuff? And then apparently we have a very well-armed Department of Homeland Security. I don't know how well-armed they are, but they have a lot of bullets.
And N.O.A.H, too, apparently.
Now you got to shoot at the tornado sometimes.
And the hurricane, because we're in the Gulf, the hurricane.
Exactly.
So, we'll move on past the bullet thing and on to our next thing in just a second. But the N.O.A.H part, and I guess this is in general, as libertarians, this irritates the crap out of me because I just see it as so wasteless.
Yeah.
Why do we have all of these different agencies doing the same damn thing?
Yeah.
Why does the National Weather Service need their own enforcement arm to protect monuments when we have, Coast Guards out there?
Yeah.
Totally respect those guys. Who else do we have out there? We have, in Texas, we have Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Yes.
Maybe they don't extend out into the waters that deep. I don't know. But there's also the National Forestry Service that I'm going to guess also protects waterways.
They probably buy bullets too. Yeah.
I would hope they do. Yeah. I hope they're not throwing sticks or rocks.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay too. Don't get me wrong. That's okay.
They could be really sharp sticks.
Proportional response. It's all about proportional response.
Exactly.
If sharp sticks are being thrown at them, sharp sticks get thrown back.
Exactly.
We also have the Department.
You'd think the Department of Homeland Security could protect a waterfront monument with 1.5 billion bullets. They've got enough rounds. I agree with you. From the libertarian point of view, all of this seems very large government. I'm even going to strip out the libertarian point of view. Purely from a conservative economic point of view. And I don't mean conservative like right-wing conservative. I just mean from an economic conservative point of view. I look at it and say, if you've got government agencies buying bullets, why are they all putting in their own requests for proposal here? Why are they all buying individually? We've got a very large military, a very large Homeland Security. Apparently we have the Social Security Administration and N.O.A.H. and whoever else has police forces in our federal government. I'm sure
everyone.
Yeah, every agency probably has someone who carries a gun. Why don't they buy together? Like if I was a large corporation and I was going to go buy software from Microsoft, you're buying Office. If you had each little group buy their own 5 license pack, you would be paying a lot of money. If you have the whole company buy an enterprise license, you lower costs. You get efficiencies of scale. Just from a pure logic point of view, Aaron and I have even discussed doing this with ammunition at some point, like going in and buying a case of something that was a little more expensive and just splitting it because we don't necessarily each need a case.
Yeah, we used to do that with 22.
Yeah.
And then we ended up buying so much 22, we bought cases on our own.
We ended up figuring out that we kind of do like buying cases and having them, mostly because we like to shoot.
And it's cheaper to do it that way.
Yes, there's one other item I want to bring up on this ammunition thing before we move on to the next topic. And this one bothers me a lot. I've been reading a lot of the conservative blogs that have been talking about these purchases, and they spend half the discussion talking about the fact that these federal agencies are buying nasty hollow point ammunition designed to cause maximum damage. Well, yes, that is what hollow point ammunition is doing, and I do actually expect that when a law enforcement agency buys ammunition, they're not buying it to cause minimum damage. You would expect that when a law enforcement agency is trying to stop someone, it's someone who's causing harm. Now, we can all argue whether they do this or not. I mean, that's a different thing. I'm just saying what the expectation is. When I buy ammunition, and I buy it for defensive purposes, I also buy hollow point ammunition. I just think that the conservative blogs who don't want people to think of ammunition as itself as a dangerous thing without a person who has bad intentions behind it shouldn't be positioning ammunition as a dangerous thing.
Right. They get onto the liberal media for doing the exact same thing.
We all talk about how the liberal media demonizes guns and demonizes ammunition, and they talk about hollow points as being cop killer bullets and all this stuff. Well, the conservative media is doing the same thing. They're just doing it and saying, well, instead of cop killer bullets, it's civilian killer bullets. It's this, that, and the other thing. It's the same argument, and I have a really hard time with it. If we're going to say that guns and ammunition are inanimate objects and have no intentions behind them except for the intentions of the person using them, then we have to stick to that story.
And here's where I get to interject my thing of all media is steaming pile of cat crap.
Yes.
Because they all complain and whine about the same thing at different times to suit their own needs. And it's all just a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, it is. It's complete bullshit because at the end of the day, they all have their own agenda.
Yeah, they do.
That's the problem. It's the fact that, in my mind, a real journalist does not have an agenda. Or what they do. The agenda is to get information disseminated.
And as a side note, I was watching something, and since I'm saying this in the spur of the moment, I cannot actually say what I was watching because I would cover so much shit in the course of a day. But it was somebody was actually talking about that, say, they did a study, and it was 30, 40 years ago, the media was actually upfront about the fact that they had a bias.
Yeah.
And the problem that we've actually run into is that now the media, all sides of the media, try to say they don't have a bias when they actually do.
Right.
So it's you know what, if you have a bias, that's fine. Tell me you have a bias. I mean, we do that on the show. We have a bias.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether it's the MSNBC bias, which, for those of you who didn't know, that would be left-leaning, or the Fox News bias, which is right-leaning. Very right, but one is very left-leaning, one is very right-leaning. And CNN is not exactly what I'd call moderate. They're also left-leaning. I don't think we have a moderate news agency out there that's mass media.
Well, and I think the problem with even saying anything's middle of the road or moderated is it's a matter of perspective.
So. It is. You're correct.
I mean, if somebody's a communist and they watch something that the rest of us consider middle of the road, to them that's extreme.
Maybe the best way to put it is we don't have anything that's just disseminating information and letting you put your own spin on it.
No, even the AP.
Very much the AP.
Oh, yeah, very much. Because if you read it, I guess if you don't have a libertarian or conservative bent, then it seems very middle of the road. Right. But if you read it and you read, and especially in my day job, I've become very sensitive to word choices and their meanings and how they form and how they do very easily form a bias.
Right.
If you read it, it's very obvious that there is a bias there.
Oh, yeah.
And for some people, that's a bias they're okay with. So for them, it's middle of the road or it's moderate. But for somebody like you or me or somebody whose views are even more extreme than theirs, then there's definitely a bias. But,
most definitely. Well, and you know what? That's a good lead-in because I think depending on how you do this bias, let's get to the next conspiracy.
Yes.
The meat conspiracy, a.k.a. the livestock conspiracy, a.k.a. the USDA. Buying stuff. So the USDA recently announced, actually the President of the United States, as part of an election tour, announced that the U.S. government will be buying that's us, by the way, we will be buying $170 million worth of livestock. The reason we're doing that is apparently right now because of this drought that's going on and the fact that feed prices are really high, which I'll get to in a second. So keep in mind, feed prices are really high, and that's what's causing all of these problems. Get back to that in a second. Farmers are having to bring their livestock to market early, which, when you bring more livestock to market, that lowers the price. So the government feels like they need to interject by putting $170 million in the market, which they feel will bolster prices. Now, I think it's an election stunt to win votes in the Midwest. I think a lot of people kind of feel that way. The question is, will this really impact any prices today? And I think the answer to that is probably not, because $170 million in the overall livestock market's not that much. Plus, when the government buys this, most likely it's all going to get used by schools. I mean, the meat's going to get used by somebody, which means those are people who are not going to be buying that meat. It's not like they're going to double buy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really going to have probably no real impact on the price today. Now let's go back a little. I was talking about the fact that what's causing all this? A drought. But what's actually causing farmers to bring livestock to market early? It's because they can't afford to feed them. The price of feed has shot through the roof. And there's actually a shortage of corn, which is used to feed a lot of these animals. Believe it or not all cows are grass-fed like the hippies would like us to believe. It's mostly corn-fed, and corn-fed beef tastes damn good.
I would tend to agree with that.
Okay, grass-fed tastes good too, but corn-fed beef just tastes really, really good. So, corn. Well, why are corn prices really high? Yes, there is a drought. But, more importantly, we have an ethanol requirement in this country that 10% of the fuel be ethanol. If you ever go to the pump and you see the little sign that says up to 10% of this fuel is ethanol, that's what that means. It's that some of it's made out of corn. Well, it's an extremely inefficient process. It actually takes $1.25, something like that, worth of fuel to create $1 worth of ethanol.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a ridiculous calculation like that. And then on top of that, even the environmentalists have figured out that ethanol doesn't burn any cleaner than regular gas because it technically does, but it lowers your gas mileage enough that you need more gasoline to get where you're going, which in the end is going to produce just as many hydrocarbons as you would have before.
Isn't that fun?
So in the end, you end up with the same problem. So going back to the problem at hand, we're using ethanol. If the President of the United States / the EPA, the President can make the decision because the EPA works for him. If the EPA just eliminated the ethanol requirement, even for a period of time, just during this bad time right now, which, by the way, they have full authority to do. There is nothing stopping them from tomorrow saying, We can stop ethanol production for the next 6 months.
Okay, to stop you there for just a second, since you know more about cars than I do, would that have any effect if we went to straight gasoline, no ethanol involved? Would that have any effect, to your knowledge, on the newer vehicles that have been made to run on?
Oh, you're going to love this.
I am.
It will have an effect. All positive.
Okay.
Your engine will require less detergents for cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
Your fuel prices will go down, not up, because, again, less detergents and stuff. A lot of the cost of your fuel is the processing agents. Now, some of this stuff would take a while to hit the market. I mean, it's...
Right. It's nothing. There's no such thing as an immediate.
Right, because the gas stations that currently have ethanol in their tanks, of course, here's the thing, though. You won't see the ethanol-less fuel for a while, but the farmers will see the impact of not using the corn almost immediately, because the corn will go back to the regular markets.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to your question, to my knowledge, you should actually see an improvement in your gas mileage, an improvement in your vehicle maintenance, just an overall general good feel. I mean, to my knowledge, your engine would actually run better on regular gasoline, even the engines that are designed to be able to run on
ethanol
and all that. Now, I think those engines that are designed to run on pure ethanol would have a problem, but I don't think we have any of those in the U.S., really. If we do, they're very few and far between.
And probably strictly government vehicles, because the government does experiment with other, because I know they were doing propane. Yeah,
and there's probably a few individuals out there who have them, you know, like people who want to do that whole make your own fuel at home thing. To those guys, they're probably still going to be fine because they'll still be making their own fuel at home.
That's possible, but I think most of those people are doing like biodiesel stuff.
Probably.
I don't think it. Yeah. I've never heard of anybody doing but that's not to say they're not.
If you did make your own ethanol, you actually need a license.
You need a liquor license.
It's not a liquor license, actually. It's just a license from the ATF, or not ATF. It is ATF.
Yeah, it is ATF.
You need a license from the ATF to make non-consumable alcohol.
Yeah, I think
it's two different licenses.
Yeah, it's It's the same license you need to make methanol.
Yes, it is, and it's actually a very similar process, oddly, to get that license as it is to have a distillery in your house to make. It's a distillery license.
And I think the other part of it is you have to put something in the alcohol that makes it unfit for human consumption, which ethanol in it itself is unfit.
I think you have to put something in that just makes it taste really bad.
Yeah,
is what it ends up coming.
Same thing with methanol.
Yeah, you could drink it; it just wouldn't be very good for you.
No, not really.
Methanol will kill you.
Yes.
Okay. Ethanol, I think, in its pure form, would still kill you. But going back to the whole discussion, if they just did that, that would lower prices, because here's what would happen. By eliminating that requirement, you would actually reduce the price of corn. By reducing the price of corn, you're reducing the price of feed. By reducing the price of feed, you're actually reducing the cost of production of an animal, of livestock. So you're able to feed them more for a longer period of time at a lower cost, which, go figure, reduces the price to the consumer and allows the farmer to maintain margins or profits. The farmer, because he reduced his costs, can sell it to you at a lower cost. It's fantastic. It's a great model. It's not what we're doing. So the conspiracy theorist in me says that everything we're doing is actually designed to raise the price of food. So we've actually seen food prices go up a lot recently. I mean,
well, they've been going up for the last few
years.
The last few years, they've been going up a lot.
There's been a lot of inflation specifically in the food area. Milk, meat, all that stuff. For those of you who do the shopping, if you can see it. For those of you whose wives or husbands do the shopping, they see it, or you see it in your credit card bill. But cost of all of that stuff is going up. And I don't know, part of me, the conspiracy theorist in me, says, no, it's just inflation. It's just that nobody has an actual intention to drive food costs up. And then that little the Tahoe guy inside of me.
The tinfoil hat.
Yeah, the tinfoil hat, Tahoe driving guy inside of me goes, they're not that dumb. Somebody's got to realize that by doing this stuff, there's an impact on the price of food. And when you increase the price of food, you do one of two things. You either force people to pay a lot more for food, and if they can't, this is the conspiracy side, you create a dependency. Okay,
I'll actually add to the conspiracy discussion for this.
Yeah, please.
And it just hit me. Yeah. I mean, if we want to make and I'm not saying this is what it is, because I don't wear the tinfoil hat, but I keep a roll, just for safekeeping in the drawer.
Purposes.
Yeah, well, exactly, for shows like today. And I'm not just backpedaling this, and I don't really think this is it, but if we wanted to make a conspiracy out of this, they just came out with the new food stamp program.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's the dependency.
There it is.
When I say it creates that dependency, it's a dependency on who or whom, and that would be the government.
Okay, so you know more, and we'll just bring in the food stamp conversation real quick and get on to the next thing.
Yeah.
What you know more about the food stamp thing, because you told me about it, and I was like, that is so stupid, I don't even want to know anymore.
I actually had someone else tell me about it because I hadn't heard I listen to satellite radio most of the time. I admit it. I don't like commercials. So a friend of mine was telling me about it in Austin, and he's like, I hear commercials for this all the time. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, the government has commercials to convince people to get on food stamps all the time. And I'm like, where? Because on the radio. So I actually turned on the radio one day driving to work just to try to hear one of these commercials. And I figured there's no way I'm going to hear it. I've only got a 30-minute commute. I heard 2 commercials in 30 minutes.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. And the first commercial was a woman talking to a guy at a federal agency. And she goes, but I have a job. Can I still get food stamps? And he goes, of course you can. But I own a car. Can I still get food stamps? You might qualify. I own my house and a car, and I have a job. Can I still get food stamps? Lots of people can still qualify, even if all that's true. And I'm thinking, what? So, yeah, there was obviously a push to get a lot more adoption of food stamps. There's actually apparently a federal agenda to do so.
They even changed the name of it.
They did. I don't remember what it's called now, though.
I don't remember.
Snaps or something like that?
I think it is Snaps.
Yeah, it's got a weird name like Snaps to make it sound jazzy. And the whole point of the commercials are really to eliminate the stigma behind food stamps. Now, personally, I am a libertarian, but I do honestly believe that a true safety net, not a safety net that anybody can qualify for, but a true you hit rock bottom safety net is a good thing to have. I'm not going to tell you I've got a plan for how one should work.
No, I wouldn't make that statement either.
But I do believe in one. And do I believe there should be a stigma attached? Well, yeah, actually there should. If you hit that rock bottom, there should be just enough of a stigma attached that, you know what? You should have every desire to get yourself off that dependency because there's a stigma. If there's no stigma, why would you ever want to leave?
Exactly.
That's a lifestyle at that point. So that aside, the conspiracy is raise the price of food to get people onto food stamps. Now, I'm going to backpedal on all this for a second because our goal is not to get you all riled up. The goal of some of this stuff, and we do this in the car too with ourselves, is we get ourselves all riled up and then we're like, all right, the logical side kicks in. Here's the logical thing. And I mentioned this earlier, and this was a critical thing. Everything I just talked about is more of an election stunt than anything else. Do I believe that the government's creating more dependency? Yes. Do I believe that it's for some crazy, nefarious reason? It's possible, but I doubt it. I think a lot of it really does have to do with the electorate. The more people who have a dependency, the reason you see liberals pushing the agenda that way, the more people who have that dependency, the more people who vote for that stuff, who vote for their agenda, who keep voting them in office. So it becomes a way to stay in office more than... And you know what? The conservatives have their own versions of welfare and everything else too. So I'm not even going to say it's one side or the other, really. It's just an agenda push, and it becomes an election tactic. And so for those of you who got all freaked out by all this stuff, I think a lot of it, at least on the meat stuff, it's election tactic. On the bullet stuff, it's big government, and every one of these agencies has their own police force, which in and of itself is scary to me, but it's not really a conspiracy.
Noah is totally going to come kick down your door later on today.
Noah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. All of it. And now, Chinese fashion, though, is the last conspiracy.
And this, well, I don't know that this is a conspiracy, but it is so bizarre. It just felt like fun to bring up today.
Yeah, and it's going to lead into the rest of our show a little bit. Not a lot.
Okay, I just figured out how this fits into a survival show. Go ahead.
Perfect. So the Chinese, apparently, and this is crazy, I only ran across this article. I don't even know how I ran across this article. It was browsing the internet. And apparently, the Chinese have a new fashion thing on their beaches. It's called the face kini, and yes, that's like bikini, but for your face. And really, it's not a bikini at all for your face, because it's like a full face mask. It looks like a ski mask.
It looks like a beach full of people about to rob a bank.
Right, because they're in full ski mask, and they're also wearing full bodysuits. And the whole purpose is to protect you from UV rays, but it's really weird looking. I mean, like, really, really weird looking.
There's a costume that came out last year, and now I've just had a complete brain fart of what the name of it is.
I know what you're talking about. It's the bodysuit thing.
Yeah, it's like the whole bodysuit where there's absolutely
one color.
It's one color, and there's absolutely nothing on your, and it even covers your eyes and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can see through it.
And it's always a big fat guy wearing one.
Oh, God, I didn't need that mental image.
Always a big fat guy.
Oh, that's wrong. Okay, so here's the survivalist slant on it, which I've been trying to figure out for about the last hour, and it hit me, which is, for those of you worried about the solar flares.
Yes,
and UV, now you have a protective suit you can go buy.
You can order a face kini and a wetsuit.
Now, I would not recommend going to withdraw money from your bank wearing one of these outfits.
Bad idea.
Generally bad idea, yes.
So, on that, I think the way we do this transition is we're not being racist against the Chinese. We just think this was a stupid idea that someone who was Chinese had.
And now we get into the part of the show, and you're going to wonder why we're only going to dedicate half of the show, because this part of the show is going to be like tap dancing on a landmine.
Yeah, so we start with bullets, and now we're doing landmines.
Yes. And so that kind of rounds things out. And we're only dedicating 30 minutes to it so that we do not actually land on one of the landmines.
Yeah.
Because this is a really tricky topic to get into, and it was brought up on the forum by Navy Jim, who has become kind of the wise man, self-proclaimed old coot of the forum, but always has these really wonderful posts that are really well thought out and always take it to that absolute edge and then come back. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to put a link to it because I really think it is worthwhile reading. And it's also really funny because Navy Jim is a really good writer.
And we should start out with, we are not racists.
And why are we not racist?
Well, we're not racist. We're Jewish. So, of course, I don't think we can be. We're a minority. And based on everything I hear on liberal media, if you're a minority, you can't be racist.
Exactly.
On top of that, Aaron has an Asian girlfriend.
This is true.
So if we make any rude comments about Asians, he has a pass. And on top of that, we've got a black friend.
Exactly. We are white and have our one obligatory black friend. Actually, we do have a couple.
We do have a couple. And actually more than a couple. We don't even think of them that way. But on top of that, we also have a redneck friend.
This is true.
Who sometimes thinks he's black.
This is also true.
So, that all being said, and now that we've offended as many of you as possible,
I think we can dig in a little deeper, a little bit, and try to offend some more people.
The goal is, if you don't feel a little offended by the end of the show, or at least a little talked down to, then we didn't do our jobs.
Exactly.
I mean, and at the end of the day, this is not to diminish the post at all.
No. The post was... Actually, the post was done much more eloquently, I think, than we're about to give it justice.
Oh, most definitely. But I think for us, we wanted to point out... the post made us think about it a little bit. And actually, I walked into the rabbit hole up here, and the first thing Aaron did is said, read this. Because I hadn't seen it yet. So he said, read this. And I read through the post, and I was like, ooh, are we doing the show on this today? And he's like, yes, that and a whole bunch of other stupid stuff. So I said, okay. And this isn't the stupid part, because I think this is important, and actually it's all about what we consider to be community. And we're going to talk about it in terms of values and nature and how we're all raised and all that kind of stuff.
And that's even Navy Jim was, and the few folks that did reply to him, they were talking about it in the context of Chi,
right? Community,
or at least the C part of Chi, which is community. And I think this is something that we all wrestle with, especially we've become, and maybe there's some good and maybe there's some bad to it, but we've become so hypersensitive to race and people of different creed and trying to be comfortable, trying to almost go overboard in being comfortable with one another.
Right. Being libertarians like we are, we believe that you have a right to associate with or disassociate with anyone you choose, really. I mean, as long as you are not causing harm to other people, your choice to associate with others is really your own choice. And it may be a really dumb choice. I mean, one of the things I think both of us pride ourselves on is trying to expose ourselves to as many different types of people as possible. And that's across the board. I don't care whether it's religions, race. And when I say that, though, I want to be there's one thing I don't think we do, which is we tend to, even when it's exposing ourselves to lots of different other experiences, there's a values thing.
Yes.
And this is kind of where I think we want to spend some time focusing.
And I think this is where his post was really going, because there was a discussion in it about what it... Actually, I don't think he said like-minded, but I don't know that he actually was taking it there fully.
Right.
But he did bring up, you always see in these posts about wanting to meet like-minded people, and what does that mean?
Right. And he said, one of the things he said, and I'm going to do no justice in talking about how he said it, but he said like-minded is kind of code for someone like me, someone similar to me. And that's true. I do agree with that. I tend not to... I've always grown up in urban environments, and when I say urban, I mean just big cities. But I don't ever... And I grew up in the Northeast. So I grew up in a place where people rarely asked each other what religion they were. I mean, it just never even came up. On top of that, I personally never cared about what color anyone was just because it wasn't a big deal. But as far as values go, what values did that person bring to the table? You know, what did they grow up with? How do they view family? How do they view other life? Those were all important things to me right away. And they're things, oddly, you'd think it would take you a while. You'd have to really get to know someone to understand their values. But I actually think it's something you can judge pretty quickly.
I think so, too. And I think as human beings, we are inherently lazy, which I've said many times. And I don't say that as a bad thing. It's a conservation of energy. We don't want to spend a lot of time and energy on something that maybe isn't necessarily that important. And in doing that, we like to pick labels, whether it be religion, whether it be color, whether it be language, nationality, anything. And we then assign, not that there are some commonalities that do end up happening there, but we choose to assign behaviors and values and thought. And so I think the fear is because you are not exactly like me, right, you will not share my exact same values, or I don't have an immediate understanding of where your values fall.
I agree.
Which, if you actually look at it and spend some time thinking about it, if you know, you and I both being Jewish, which I think is the first time we've ever actually said it on the show. I mean, we've always kind of danced around the topic, but to actually say it, as long as we're in the topic itself, if you and I say it, we did not have, because there are actually a lot of different, we'll say, regional backgrounds for Jews, and you and I don't have the same regional background in our religion. So there are cultural differences, there are culinary differences, which is a very common way that Jews like to argue with each other about whether or not how they take their potato pancakes.
Exactly.
And, you know, and people will get really heated about it, about whether or not you put applesauce or whether or not you put sour cream on it.
It's amazing what people will find to argue about.
Oh, and become heated about it. And it's a way, you know, and I actually, oddly enough, do spend a strange amount of time thinking about this. And my personal belief is that if I do something, let's say what am I wearing? I'm wearing a gray t-shirt. I'm wearing a dark gray t-shirt, and as luck would have it, you are wearing a light gray t-shirt.
Yep.
You are wrong for wearing a light gray t-shirt, and here's why. It invalidates my decision or calls into question my decision to wear a dark gray t-shirt.
That was my goal, actually.
I think it was.
It was. I was calling into question your choice of the wrong dark gray shirt.
See, exactly. More conspiracy theories for you.
Exactly. Well, and to what you said, I think people going back to something you said a little bit earlier about the laziness and the fact that we take a look at people and we try to immediately throw in stereotypes. So the whole idea, the concept of stereotypes is actually a laziness thing. You really want to think about it that way. It's, I see you, I'm going to make the following 15 judgments about you because of what I see, and it's just easier to do that than to even have a conversation. And honestly, stereotypes have their place sometimes. They sometimes allow us to very quickly assess a situation. On the other hand, stereotypes can sometimes be completely out of place. And I'm going to use I'm actually going to throw a thing out there for everybody that you might laugh at. You've heard about our New Mexico trip before. We've brought it up a couple times. We did a big road trip to New Mexico.
Oh God, this is going to be funny.
And our friend was up there with us. I'm not going to name him. I don't want him to feel weird about it or anything.
He didn't even listen to the show.
That's true. Ken was up there with us. And Ken is like 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah.
Really well-built guy, very athletic, very fit. He was carrying a gun at the time.
Dark as night.
Dark as night. I was getting there.
Okay.
Ken is an islander. He's also the biggest racist I know. But Ken is an islander, and he is dark as night. But he was carrying a gun. We all were, actually. We were just carrying on our road trip. And we were in a pizza place. And a kid walks in. White kid with now it was the summer, thanks. Late spring, early summer.
Yeah.
Kid was wearing a long duster, a black duster.
White kid.
Wearing high school age, wearing a black duster. Ken got real antsy really fast. He thought there was going to be a shooting scenario. I guess Columbine or something was still in his head. I don't know. But he got all freaked out that this kid was going to pull out shotguns or something and take everyone out. And Ken the whole time sitting there, and he keeps reaching back, feeling like making sure his gun's still there. I mean, it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But it was totally a stereotype situation, and it really was very interesting to watch, because it wasn't your typical stereotype
No, it was actually in reverse.
It was in reverse. But it was everything he'd been seeing in the media recently led him to think, white kid in a duster is just going to shoot all of us.
Mm-hmm. He's going to tear up a pizza place.
Right. Now, was his stereotype correct in that case? No. Was it wrong for him, though, having heard that there had been a couple of shootings recently by teenage kids in dusters, to raise his alertness level? Actually, it was probably a healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, the level he raised it to was probably over the top. But I think, like I said, stereotypes based on what's actually going on in the world are probably to some extent a healthy thing. Now, judging someone purely on a stereotype is not something we'd recommend. We really do go, and I'm going to keep hammering on it. When I judge people, it tends to be on their values. People who don't value education, for instance, I tend not to value their thoughts and opinions. Or I hold a much lower level of value to their thoughts and opinions because I grew up valuing education. I grew up valuing family. I grew up valuing relationships and friends. So people who don't put those types of values on things, I know personally, I automatically diminish their status, and I wouldn't want to be with them in a survival situation. And I think that's pretty...
Yeah, because it's not a priority. And that speaks to, in part, what... Actually, that really does speak to what Navy Jim was talking about, because his was in the context of what happens in a collapse. Mm-hmm. And I think he was more concerned of who's targeting who or whatnot, and all done in a very intelligent manner. Mm-hmm. But I think it does speak to that in how we would clump up, so to speak, or choose to group up. And it would be, I think there would be some, in a like real grid down situation, if we're going to take it that far, and then we'll come back away from this a little bit and go back onto some other things. But I think there definitely, we would see groups form that were more homogenous. Yeah. Than we see today in urban environments where there is diversity. Because,
and to that point, what's the easiest way to figure out who has similar values to you? You're going to go to your church. Mm-hmm. In a bad situation, you may go to your church, and the other 100 people who show up there are all going to be the other church members, and you're going to clump together because you at least share that value to start, and it's easier to build from there when you have those values. You may go to your community center if that's something you value, and the other people who show up there will also have valued that high. So again, it goes back to how you value things. And when you build that, going back to the survival chi concept, we talk about building your own community. When you go do that, you want to make sure it's a community of people you can get along with, community of people you can trust, a community of people that when you say something, they all don't look at you like, bullets, really? Are we having that conversation again? So you want that shared system. And that's why I think you end up with that homogenous environment where it's the reason, in that email he talked about living in a Hispanic neighborhood. Well, the reason you're going to have people of that neighborhood bunching together is they share a common background, which going back to the laziness perspective, the easiest way to go find people with shared values is find people with a common background. Mm-hmm. They're going to have shared values. It's the reason people do it. You always hear in Houston, there's a huge Greek festival every year. Yeah. The Greek community here is tight. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason they are that way is that they've got shared values and backgrounds. They can share stories. They can share, to your point earlier, food. Mm-hmm. They can share religion. They can share experience. And that's so important when you're, part of the whole survival chi thing is maintaining mental health. Yeah. And that's so important when you're doing that. So, that's kind of my take on it. It's not about race or not hanging out with a Hispanic if you're a white guy or anything like that. I think it's about a shared background and a shared experience more than the other pieces. I would agree with that. And speaking to communities, because Houston has several very strong communities, and one of them, since my girlfriend is Asian, is the Vietnamese community. Yeah. There's a huge Vietnamese community here in Houston. And even within that, there's two kind of separate halves of it. There's the Buddhist community, and then there's
I want to say the Catholic, it may actually be Baptist. I'm not really sure because I'm much more familiar with the Buddhist side of things, since that's what Jen's family is. But it's very interesting to see that even they, with the same cultural language background and everything else, will still separate out by religion.
Yeah, and when it came time to figure out who they were going to live with if they had to choose that, they would probably choose people who are most like them.
Yeah, you'll have a large Asian area, but then within that Asian area, and there is like a very large part of Houston that is predominantly Asian, or it is actually I think all Asian now. But even within that, you have the Chinese areas, you have the Vietnamese areas. I don't believe there's really a Japanese section to that, but I could be there's not a very big Japanese population. I mean, there is a population here, but there's not that big.
Yeah, and even within the Jewish community, I mean, think about that.
Oh, yeah.
We were joking once that I dated a girl a long time ago who was a Russian Jew, and we were joking that all her friends were part of a Jewish community. It just wasn't one we knew at all.
Yeah,
because they had their own world going on. I mean, they had their own community essentially because a lot of their parents were immigrants. They had a shared background and shared experience and shared culture, being slightly different than that of, say, other parts of Europe that had Jewish communities. So
yeah, and we used to joke that that's where all the hot Jewish girls had been hiding all those years.
We did joke that way, a lot. But at the end of the day, you know, it's the reason they clumped is because they felt comfortable together. There was a safety there, and that safety is in similarity. And you brought up something about babies and similarity.
Yeah, I was watching. What is it? I have to actually look at my notes real quick. Discovery Channel Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman, who I don't care what his political beliefs. I don't even know what his political beliefs are. I love Morgan Freeman. I think he's the man. That's just because he just exudes cool somehow. And that's not just because he's black. Since we're having that show today, I can get to say that. But the title of the show was "Can We Eliminate Evil?" And I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure it was in that episode. And they did a study where they took babies, and what they were trying to figure out was, does the human propensity towards bias and association, actually, I'm almost positive it was in the evil episode, is that an inherent part of human nature? And as it turns out, it is, because and I'm not going to do this study the full justice because I just figured out which episode it was like 2 seconds before we started recording. But the gist of it was they took a stuffed animal and they took a baby. And the baby would make a choice in applesauce or carrots. Then a stuffed animal would choose applesauce, and then the other stuffed animal would choose the carrots. The baby would automatically associate itself with the stuffed animal that chose the applesauce, and would even show hostility towards the stuffed animal that chose carrots. So it is unfortunate, I think, that is part of our innate decision-making and behavior. It is, at least we should acknowledge that is part of our innate inherent, because the reason is, if we choose to try to blow it off, or I'm looking for a better word, or ignore that is a fact of human nature, then we cannot move past it.
Yeah, but I'll even go a step further. I think that it's there as a survival mechanism. So if you are going to in the best scenario, the survival mechanism that's kicking in is to be part of a tribe, essentially. You know, if you look at just looking at primates are very protective of their tribes. You could have 2 sets of chimps from different tribes, and they'll have war and all those other things like the rest of us to defend their territory, their tribe, their similarities. They tend to have similar, I'm going to use it loosely, language, ways they communicate. They don't necessarily communicate with other tribes the same way. They have similar cultures. The way they would deal with their dead is actually, believe it or not, yes, chimps do have ways to deal with the dead. The way they deal with their dead tends to be part of that tribe. They don't bury them like we do, but they do have ways to deal with them. And all of that. So that innate idea of I'm looking for similarity says you're like me. I can associate with you. I can be part of what you're doing, and I can feel comfortable about that. And it really does. It creates better communities, tighter knit communities. If you don't have any similarities with your neighbor at all, you're not going to be friendly with your neighbor. If you live in an area where you and your neighbor are like peas in a pod, I mean, you know, there's no difference between what happens in your living room and what happens in their living room. there's a good chance you're going to know your neighbor. You're going to be friends with your neighbor. You're going to, when your neighbor's away on vacation, you're going to be the guy who calls the police because something happened to the house. And so that type of community and that type of similarity bias, as you put it, is very much part of a survival instinct, I think.
I would tend to agree, and it goes back to we are inherently lazy, and we're looking for simple things. And to go to how we overcome that is we look for similarity.
Right.
And most human beings do value education.
Yep.
They do value family, and we have, whether you want to call it the Ten Commandments, no matter what you want to call it, we do have certain things that as human beings we feel are wrong. Murder, theft, just to name two. So to go beyond that, we do all have common knowledge, and I think that's what we have to do as survivalists when we're trying to form groups or consider what's around us and look for what, as any good salesman does, he looks for common ground with someone and builds from there. So we have those things that we can work on when we're trying to reach out in community. And one of the things that you do end up having to do is ignore cultural differences that seem weird or unusual. Right. And I'll give an example, since Navy Jim was talking about that he lives in a predominantly Hispanic area. My house is in an area that is surrounded by a predominantly Hispanic area.
Most definitely.
And there's a Hispanic family that lives directly across the street. And to give an example of, every evening they go out into the whole family goes out into their front yard. And they hang out with the kids in the front yard, and they sit around and have a couple of drinks in the front yard. To me, that's very weird. Because to me, you do all that in the backyard. You don't sit out in the front yard.
Right. It's private.
It's private. Yeah. But at the same time, if I stop and think about it, I understand what it is. It's an openness to community, and that's how their culture deals with that.
Right.
Or chooses to engage with that.
Yeah, they've actually opened up their house to their neighbors around them.
Exactly. And so whether neighbors choose to think that's weird or not is up to their, or go over and engage with the family or not is a completely different thing.
On the other hand, the thing you know, what was interesting about what you were just talking about, and something that I think you like about this community in general, is it is very family oriented.
Yes.
You know, you were talking about that as being different as to how you would do it, but at the same time, I think you look at it to some extent, and I do too, and say it's great that their entire family is out there interacting with each other, instead of like in a lot of neighborhoods in Houston, especially in urban areas, actually probably throughout the entire country, where instead of interacting in their front yard playing, you've got a kid sitting on a video game console somewhere, not interacting with anybody, not getting any exercise. So actually, that's more of a shared value to what you probably hold on a day-to-day basis than some other person might be.
And that speaks to, even if somebody's culture is a little different, looking deeper, what are the values behind that cultural experience that they're having? How can you identify with that?
And I think when we say like-minded, that's pretty much what we mean.
Exactly. And I think we can even take that into the survival community. You know, and this is actually in part how one of the things that spawned the show is you and I both became irritated with the bias of, well, I'm a country boy.
Right.
You hear that a lot within the survivalist community, that innately and inherently makes them a better survivalist than someone else. And if we're going to look at the cultural aspect of that, I do understand it. They probably spent more time outdoors, more time hunting and fishing and doing those activities that we associate with survival than what most urbanites do.
Right.
But in that danger, we exclude people like you and me who did grow up doing that stuff but happen to live in the city.
Exactly. And I think that's why we've used like-minded in a broader sense.
Yeah.
We really do talk about it in terms of building that community. And we do want you to open up your mind when you think about like-minded. You know, think about it in terms of people who have similar goals to you in life. Similar, you know, it doesn't have to be somebody who goes to the exact same church you do, but has similar family values as you. Not to say that, you know, somebody who is in your church should be excluded either. You know, you don't expand just because we say so, but expand because you want to increase your awareness of what's going on in the world. You want to increase the number of experiences you're having and just expand your mind in general. And you can do that by finding people who have similar goals in life as to what you do.
I would agree with that. I think that's what any group that's going to clump up is going to do.
Right.
But I think to break down those barriers. Part of what Navy Jim was talking about is to find that common ground and reach out and do something. If they, metaphorically speaking, if they slap your hand away, they slap your hand away, and you've done your part, which is to try to reach out and connect with them in some way. And as someone that responded to Navy's Jim post put it, I think it was Hippo Feet that actually said it, which was that his estimation in the community was, you may be the only old white coot in your neighborhood, but what I think will end up happening is you will be their old white coot.
Right, and I think that's very true. You know, it's when you become a central part of that community, you may, using that as the example, you may be the old white coot, but you're the old white coot who brings X, Y, and Z to the table.
And yeah, exactly. And I think to speak to from our own personal experience about Houston gets disaster in the way of hurricanes
all the time.
All the time. Well, I mean, they're not. I mean, not Katrina style, but and maybe it's just we deal with them a little better. Maybe we don't. I don't know. But in essence, what I've always noticed, and John, certainly chime in with this. I've always noticed that in those situations, at least in Houston and in our community, race and color and creed and everything else goes out the window, and that our communities tend to tighten up much more.
Yeah,
even with people you've in your own neighborhood that you've never ever met before, all of a sudden you're like best friends having a barbecue.
Oh yeah, I would say that disaster, at least in the Houston area.
Yeah.
And again, I think it is culturally different in different places, but here it really always has been very much of a band together.
Yeah.
And even different communities band together. Because at the end, it's kind of what you said, which is when you look for the shared values, and when we value things like life, and we value things like our children and stuff like that, it's very easy to start finding shared values.
Yes.
So the communities do a great job of coming together, and you'll have different denominations of churches and synagogues and mosques and all of it getting together and making sure that people who lost their homes or lost power are taken care of. And actually, they tend to work better than any of the government agencies. Because what it is you've got people who can act much more quickly. And even, by the way, and that is not an attack on, again, those safety nets. Even FEMA recognizes that they are a large moving government entity. And really, at the end of the day, it's up to all of us to take care of each other.
And that's how, in part, how CERT was born.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it makes perfect sense. And when you look at it from the outside, you go, wow, that is amazing. But when you're inside of it, there's nothing else that you would possibly do. It's kind of, it's just also so natural that something bad happened, I can help you and you can help me, and now we all get together and make it happen.
Yeah, and I have to speak to another voice in the community, James Wesley Rawls, who I've said it a lot of times, I don't like his writing, and I don't necessarily agree with a lot of his values. And in the book Patriots, which it's almost like a survival rite of passage to read the book, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And I was glad to see he introduced characters of different religions and different races and really drove home the point. I felt he did it in an extremely, from a literary standpoint, it was very clumsy in the way he did it. But that was something that he did try to drive home, that these are shared values, that we were trying to survive, that liberty is important and that family is important and so on and such. And it gave kind of a clumsy, goofy little way of dancing around how the different characters in the book dealt with their differences. There was a Jewish character that was living with the main family of the book. That goes all back to it, is of finding common ground. And to the question of will we, in a disaster situation or something like that, will we clump up? We probably will clump up, but I think we'll clump up more in the ways that Hippo Feet was talking about, which is, you may be that community's, their old white coot, or you may be their young Asian, crazy guy with spiky hair, or you may be whatever you are, you will probably end up being that community's whatever. Exactly.
And it goes back to all the survival chi things. If you do what's behind that and work with your community and build skills, that's the other key. It's all about, if you can provide, if you can help, and you become useful to that community, it all tends to clump up in that way rather than just along racial lines or religious lines.
Exactly. And with that, we're going to wrap up episode 81. Thank you for joining us. Help us bring you better information about preparedness. If you have an author, blogger, podcaster, video blogger, or any other person you'd like to hear on the show, we'd love to have them on. Contact the person you'd like to hear on the show and tell them about In the Rabbit Hole Urban Survival Podcast. Tell them to visit intherabbithole.com/guest. Don't wait. Do it today, and let's grow the show together. Do you have something to say about survival and preparedness? In the Rabbit Hole is looking for people that are passionate about all topics of survival to become blog contributors. Don't sit on the sidelines. Share your knowledge with others today. Contact us through the feedback form on the site and let us know you'd be interested in becoming an In the Rabbit Hole contributor. In the Rabbit Hole isn't just a podcast and a blog. It's also a community. The best way to connect to that community is by joining me and the other rabbit holers on the In the Rabbit Hole forum at forum.intherabbithole.com. Remember, survival chi starts with community. So come join me at forum.intherabbithole.com and let's talk about all things preparedness. From the Lone Star State, till next time, stay safe and sound.
This is the In the Rabbit Hole podcast episode archive project. What you're about to listen to is a past episode from the In the Rabbit Hole Urban Survival Podcast. You can learn more by visiting intherabbithole.com. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel now.